When it comes to finding natural treasures, the first thing most people think about is gold prospecting. After all, the gold rushes of the past became legendary, and even today, many regions of the United States still produce a decent amount of gold. But would you believe me if I told you there are other minerals that can be worth more than gold? Yes, many of these minerals are gemstones that are actually relatively easy to find, like opals and tourmalines, which depending on your region can be much more accessible than a few grams of gold collected with a lot of effort, especially in areas with pegmatites, quartz veins, or old abandoned mining sites. And as we move forward, you'll notice that most of the gemstones you find in nature, including diamonds, jade, and even meteorites we've talked about in other videos on the channel, usually look like ugly, misshapen stones with no shine and nothing that looks like jewelry. But at the same time, they can be extremely valuable, with the potential to be worth millions of dollars in a single rare specimen that most people walk right past without even realizing it. Which is understandable, because with so many rocks around, it's hard to know which ones are valuable and which ones are just common stones. That's why I put together a list of 5 valuable gems worth more than gold, to show you in practice which materials you should really start looking for. And while you're here, let me know in the comments if you're on Team Gold or if you prefer gemstones. You might be wondering, okay, but how valuable are we talking? Well, valuable enough to add a few $1,000s to your bank account, depending on the quality, size, and especially the rarity of the piece you find. In some cases, a single stone with good color and transparency can reach prices that most people only associate with high-end jewelry diamonds. And if this video makes sense to you, feel free to subscribe and support our work with your like. Because this kind of content, simple and accessible at first glance, can completely change the way you see the world out there. Whether you're walking along a dirt road, exploring a riverbed, or just checking the rocks in your own backyard. The first thing you need to understand is that the big advantage of these stones is not just their individual value, but their quantity. When you find one, you usually end up finding several more in the same spot. Unlike extremely high-value gemstones, where you have to search a lot just to find a single sample, these more common mid-tier gemstones tend to show up in clusters, veins, and concentrated pockets. That means you can easily fill a small bucket or collection bag in a single field trip. That's why it's important to keep something in mind. Every stone has its own value, whether it has high or low commercial value. Some will be worth more money, others will be worth more as learning material, as a geological indicator, or simply as a first step for you to train your eye. That's because the value of any gemstone will always depend on its quality. In other words, the clearer and more vivid the color of a gem, the more expensive it tends to be. Take emeralds, for example, which are very valuable stones. There are nice emeralds with a clearly visible green color, but with a more opaque, dull appearance and not much brilliance. They're still real emeralds and still expensive, but an emerald that is highly transparent and crystal clear can be far more valuable than a cloudy one. For that reason, I'm going to show you what level of quality and color a stone needs to have to actually be worth something. So let's start with the first stone you can find out in nature. This stone is not the easiest to find, and it's not the easiest to identify either, especially if you're a beginner. But if you get lucky, you might come across it. I'm talking about opals. We've already talked a lot about this stone here on the channel and just how valuable an opal can be. In case you don't know, this is one of the most valuable gemstones in the world. It can be found in many places around the globe, in a wide variety of colors and tones. The most expensive type of opal is fire opal, which is that bright, crystal clear orange opal. Right after that, we have precious opal, which is the type that shows that beautiful play of color. And on top of that, there are black opals, which are stunning and highly valued in the fine gem market. Around the world in several different countries, there are records of these high-value opals. But why am I bringing opal into this video? Because opal, unlike many other stones, is a type of gemstone you can find without having to dig very deep. You can literally stumble across an opal deposit out there. And it's important for you to know a few key characteristics of this stone. It's lighter than most other rocks around it, and when you hold it in your hand, it almost feels like a piece of plastic. The surface is usually smooth and it can show practically any color, Maybe you won't find a top-grade precious opal like the really expensive ones right away, but you can definitely find other kinds of opal that are considered semi-precious and still have solid market value. And that value will depend mainly on the color of the opal. It could be purple, yellow, green, blue, or nearly transparent. In general, semi-precious opals can range anywhere from around $20 to about $5,000 per kilo, even in rough, uncut form. Just like opal, another stone you can track down out in nature, especially if you're in the right type of terrain, is jade. If you're not very familiar with it, most people imagine jade only as a simple green stone, usually carved into bracelets or little figurines. But in reality, jade is a whole gem family that can show very different looks and very different price tags, and in its top forms, it can easily be worth more than the same weight in gold. There are two main types, nephrite and jadeite. Nephrite is tougher and more common, and jadeite is rarer and can reach absurd values in the fine jewelry market. For you who are out there in the field, what you need to keep in mind is this. The more vivid, even and alive the color of the jade is, and the more translucent the piece, the more desirable and valuable it becomes as a commercial gemstone. In many parts of the United States and around the world, there are still large areas that are poorly explored from a collector's point of view, especially mountain regions with metamorphic rocks and old serpentinite bodies where nephrite jade can occur as veins and lenses. You may be walking over a type of jade that has never been properly studied, or a local variety that could end up getting its own trade name in the future. The important thing is to train your eye. Good jade usually has a smooth, almost waxy surface when weathered, feels denser and tougher than the other rocks around it, and shows a color that looks like it's coming from inside the stone, not just a stain on the surface. Jade can appear in several colors besides the classic green: white, lavender, yellow, brown, and even almost black. But as a rule of thumb, the more intense, clean, and uniform the color, the more commercially valuable the piece can be. A chunk of cloudy, blotchy jade with uneven color might be interesting as a collector's rock, but a more translucent block with a rich green or lavender tone can end up being worth far more, especially once cut and polished. Rough jade used for carvings and jewelry can range from relatively modest prices all the way up to amounts that easily surpass the value of a similar weight in gold, depending on its type, color, and transparency. Another gem you can find, and that many people have already seen without realizing what it was, is aquamarine. This is one of the stones we mention a lot when we talk about pegmatites and granitic rocks, because aquamarine is the blue variety of the mineral beryl, the same family as emerald. In nature, it often appears as hexagonal crystals growing in light-colored granite, alongside feldspar and mica, or in pegmatite veins that cut through the surrounding rock. If you're hiking in an area with coarse-grained granite and you spot a pale blue to blue-green, glassy mineral filling a cavity or sticking out of a weathered boulder, it's worth taking a closer look. Aquamarine is a gemstone that can easily be worth more than a handful of small gold flakes when it has good size, strong color, and high clarity. But not every aquamarine will have market value. A lot of what you find in nature will be very pale, almost colorless, or full of fractures and inclusions. Those pieces are still valuable as learning material because they train your eye to recognize beryl, its crystal habit, and its typical environment. What we're really looking for, though, are stones with a more intense, even blue or blue-green color and as few internal fractures as possible. One detail that causes many people to ignore aquamarine in the field is that broken crystals can look like just another piece of glassy quartz. The difference is in the shape of the crystal, in the way the faces meet at sharp angles, and in that subtle seawater color that gives the stone its name. Well-cut aquamarines with strong color and good clarity can go for values that easily compete with fine gold jewelry, especially in larger sizes. On the rough market, pieces suitable for cutting can sell for significantly higher prices per gram than you'd expect from a simple blue stone pulled out of a granite outcrop. So, whenever you're around pegmatites or coarse granites, keep an eye out for that soft blue glint hiding among the feldspar and mica. Beyond aquamarine, another gemstone you can find in nature, often in association with quartz-rich rocks in volcanic environments, is citrine. Citrine is a yellow to orange variety of quartz. And here's an important point. Natural citrine is much rarer than most people think. A large part of the citrine you see on the market actually started as amethyst that was heated to change its color. But real, naturally formed citrine with attractive color can be much more valuable than the average person imagines. And in practice, it can easily be worth more than the small piece of gold most hobby prospectors hope to find in a single afternoon. In the field, citrine can appear as crystals lining cavities in volcanic rocks, as part of geodes, or in quartz veins that cut through granites and metamorphic rocks. Many people walk right past these stones because they look like just another piece of quartz with a yellowish stain. What you want to look for is a clean, transparent body with a warm, even color, from light lemon yellow all the way to deeper Madeira orange tones, without too much brown muddiness. The more vibrant, consistent, and crystal clear the color, the more potential the stone has as a commercial gem. Just like with other quartz varieties, each piece of citrine is unique. Some crystals show slight color zoning, others contain small inclusions that give character to the stone. But when you find a crystal or a fragment large enough to cut a nice gemstone with good color and few fractures, you may be holding something that can be sold for much more than a small vial of fine gold flour. On the rough market, citrine that is transparent and has an attractive color can command prices that increase quickly with size and clarity, especially for pieces destined for fine jewelry. So whenever you're exploring areas with old volcanic rocks, quartz veins, or riverbeds that drain those regions, pay close attention to any yellow to orange transparent stones you see mixed in with the gravel. And another gem that, unlike quartz, you definitely won't find everywhere but can show up in very specific regions, especially in river gravels and alluvial deposits, is sapphire. When we talk about sapphire, most people think of that classic deep blue gemstone used in high-end jewelry, often with prices that obviously leave gold far behind. But in the field, rough sapphire is usually far from glamorous. Many crystals are small, rounded, cloudy, and look more like weird bluish or greenish pebbles than precious gems. Sapphire is a variety of the mineral corundum, and it doesn't occur only in blue. It can also appear in yellow, green, pink, orange, and even colorless forms, all of which, depending on color and clarity, can reach values above gold for the same weight in fine stones. In nature, sapphires are often concentrated in riverbeds that cut through old metamorphic rocks or ancient volcanic deposits. The original crystals weather out of the rock and accumulate with heavy minerals such as garnet, magnetite, and other dense grains. To the untrained eye, these pebbles don't look like anything special, but under the right light, you'll see a glassy to slightly silky luster and a color that's more intense than the surrounding stones. The rule here is similar to what we've talked about with the other gems. The more intense, clean, and evenly distributed the color, and the fewer fractures and inclusions inside, the more valuable that sapphire can become once it's cut. A single crystal with good size, strong royal blue color, and high clarity can reach values of thousands of dollars per carat, which puts even a small stone far above what most hobbyists will ever find in gold. On the other hand, more opaque or heavily included sapphires can still be valuable for collectors, for star sapphires, or as material for cabochons and decorative pieces. Because sapphire is rarer and usually more challenging to identify correctly in the field, it's always a good idea to get a second opinion. If possible, talk to a local geologist or an experienced prospector in your area before you start exploring new regions. And if you don't have access to either, I recommend you check out our digital guide, Geology Journey for Beginners, which I'll leave as the first link in the description. In it, you'll learn how to identify the stones you find in nature using simple, at-home tests without needing expensive equipment, so you can tell whether that dull little pebble in your pan is just another rock or a sapphire that could be worth much more than gold. And remember one thing, don't expect a single stone to pay for everything. Most of the pieces you find out there will be low to medium quality, and that's completely normal. The good news is that when you're finding bad stones, it usually means you're already in the right place. From there, it's a matter of time, patience, and persistence until a higher quality piece shows up. After all, you never know when your real lucky day is going to happen. So don't lose hope just because the first things you find aren't museum grade. Even if you're picking up cheaper stones, the right quantity of them can still end up putting real dollars in your pocket. And in many cases, it can actually be more profitable in practice to collect a lot of mid to low-grade material that sells consistently than to spend years chasing a single, extremely high-end gemstone that may never appear. And after all this, it's impossible not to wonder, have you ever thrown away a gemstone without realizing it? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear your story and where you're watching from. But let's say this time you do something different. You find a stone that doesn't look like anything you've seen so far. You don't toss it back on the ground, you keep it. Now what? How do you really know what it is? That's where a practical tool I always recommend comes in for anyone taking their first steps and wanting to go beyond pure luck. The book Geology Journey for Beginners, available on Amazon. Inside, you'll find clear explanations about hardness, density, luster, simple at-home methods, and step-by-step guidance to figure out whether the stone in your hand is just an ordinary rock, a piece of quartz, a promising jade, an interesting aquamarine or citrine, a sapphire that could be worth more than gold, or even something rarer, like a diamond. Instead of depending only on what you remember from this video, you'll have a reference guide you can take with you into the field and use calmly at home. But if it's not the right moment for you to get the book, you can still subscribe for free and follow the next videos. Because in practice, what all these gems have in common isn't just their value potential, it's the fact that they're accessible. You don't need a mining permit, you don't need heavy machinery, you don't need a fancy lab. You need attention, curiosity, and a few simple tests. Scratching glass to check hardness, observing the luster, whether it looks vitreous, waxy, or greasy, feeling the weight in your hand to estimate density, and paying attention to the rocks around you, whether you're in volcanic rocks, schists, gneisses, serpentinite, amphibolite, or granitic pegmatites. These details, when you add them up, make the difference between throwing away a special piece and recognizing material that can be cut, polished, and multiplied in value. And of course, this is just the beginning. In the next video, we're going to go even deeper into this journey, getting into less obvious gemstones, talking about where they hide, and showing you some of the best types of terrain to search in your region if you want to find stones that can rival gold in value. Thanks for liking and subscribing. Good luck, Gem Hunter!